Welcome into a Husker247 spring practice update. I am Mike Schaefer, joined by Michael Brunch, Brian Christopherson. On Wednesday, all four of Nebraska's, well, I guess there's five scholarship quarterbacks. Four of the five scholarships quarterbacks dropped by today, as well as Mark Whipple and Scott Frost. So a quarterback-heavy day at practice. We'll just start right away with Casey Thompson because I imagine that's what the people want to hear about. And the people want to hear from Brian Christopherson. What was your first experience with Casey Thompson like today, and what takeaways did you have from that conversation?
He's as seasoned as you would expect for a guy who was a starting QB at Texas and has been around and grew up with a father who obviously played big-time college football. I wrote about it. I thought one of the most interesting parts was he backtracked a little bit and got into how he ended up at Nebraska and how it came down to Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Auburn. And I thought the stuff he said about Nebraska's NIL impact and how it can basically compete or beat anybody in the country jumped out as much as anything, because you take that information and that's not just a Casey Thompson story. That's like a story going forward as this climate is changing in college sports. If Nebraska can win those battles to get guys like Casey Thompson. So he's I think he feels at home. I think he said he kind of took his time. He didn't just jump right into being the loud guy in the room. He sat in the back a little bit, but he took the offensive lineman out to a Brazilian steakhouse and they had a buffet, and he's kind of bonded with guys. And right now it feels like he's clearly ahead of the pack, as was sort of expected. We'll get to Purdy, but I know he's a little dinged up, and so is Richard Torres. So they actually don't have as many QBs going right now as it seems on the surface.
Absolutely. I think the important follow-up here is, BC, have you ever been to a Brazilian steakhouse?
Yeah. It's kind of fun. It's when you flip the thing and you say, I want more, and they bring the pineapples, and then everybody flips it so that they want more. Everybody always wants the pineapple at those things.
Pineapple.
Yeah.
Pineapple is the top currency at a Brazilian steakhouse. You learn all sorts of things on this podcast. This is good stuff. All right, Brunch, you were over there with Casey Thompson as well. What other takeaways did you have from him?
Yeah, the kind of the conversation about what this offense is going to look like, I think is one thing that you kind of glean from all the quarterbacks today. From talking to Logan Sowards, he said that the quarterback run game was still going to be a lot of what Nebraska is going to do. They were going to ask that of Casey Thompson. The other thing that stood out about Casey Thompson is, he's learning another new offense, but when you kind of go back through his time at Texas, every year it was a different offensive coordinator, different approach to, terminology and drops and everything else. And, I think he likes the potential of this offense, especially if they can kind of pair it with a complementary run game from the running backs. So, I don't think he's a guy that's coming into this, awed by what he's facing in terms of trying to win a starting job. He's been through it. He's almost Adrian Martinez like in the way that he kind of deals with media, which I think that piece of it is always really important when you're talking about a place that's as big of a fishbowl as Nebraska is.
Absolutely. So I was over there with Chubba Purdy, the other new addition to Nebraska's quarterback room from the transfer portal. Interesting conversation there. He didn't get into specifics of it, but he says he's hoping to be back after Nebraska's spring break, able to put pads on. Right now, he's able to do 7-on-7 stuff. He's taking a lot of mental reps. He's getting involved in signaling in plays and trying to learn the playbook that way. But he feels like he can jump into that competition when he gets back here in a couple of weeks' time. A lot of the conversation centered on how he ended up at Nebraska, and Mark Whipple and Ty Robinson, of all people, deserves some of an assist there. He grew up near Ty Robinson. That was his player host when he came out for a visit to Nebraska, and they bonded pretty well. And he felt like, and I think this is kind of important too, because you're talking about two transfer portal quarterbacks. Chubba Purdy said that so far everything he was told from Nebraska about how things were going to work, what things were like here, has been truthful. And you can tell that that's been important to him based off of the, previous experience at Florida State. And he wanted to go somewhere where people were going to give him the lay of the land. And that's what it was. And that's kind of what he's found here at Nebraska. So he hasn't been able to get on the field in terms of pads yet, but he's excited about what he's seen from the wide receivers too. That was something I was over there with Heinrich Harburg, and I'll mention him too. He really hit on Thomas Fidone. Felt like that injury maybe helped Fidone in some ways mature, learn the offense, learn college football from his eyes. And now he's come out really strong this spring. And so Harburg really made a point to kind of bring up Fidone and said that he's someone who's really kind of impressed him early on in spring practice. Brunch, you were over there with Logan Smothers. He's sometimes a forgotten man in this quarterback room, but he's also the guy that's most recently started a game for the Huskers.
The only one, in fact. And it's the conversation of Logan Smothers is an interesting one because this is a guy who started the Iowa game. Nebraska immediately brings in two transfer quarterbacks, and I think the immediate thought is, okay, well, this guy's gone, or that's just the way it works in college football now. He was very adamant that he is going to be at Nebraska for the long term, loves to be here, is not playing on anywhere, and is welcoming the competition. So, they're still going to have the quarterback run piece of it. I think he's kind of learning a little bit more of the going under center part, but I don't think that he's an afterthought in this competition, especially like you said. I mean, you have Richard Torres nursing a knee injury. Heinrich Harburg hasn't played. Chubba Purdy, same boat, where he hasn't done anything beyond 7-on-7 work. So, right now the competition is basically Casey Thompson and Logan Smothers for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. BC, Mark Whipple, Scott Frost both spoke today. What takeaways did you have from those two guys?
Probably Frost speaking about the O-line, and I think Bruns was around there, and he got right to the point and says, they're getting a burst and a sort of a pop at the point of attack that they weren't previously. I don't know. It seemed a little bit more than just spring talk. It did actually seem like he's seeing a little something he hasn't in the past, and he wanted to go out of his way to say that. Of course, there's a lot of wondering about what Donovan Rilo is going to do with that group and who's where and all that. But actually, of all the talk about the offense, you kind of came away from Whipple and Frost like 5 practices in, like they're almost most encouraged about the O-line is the way I took from it. I think the biggest thing for that group, and it was, by the way, an actual sock talk with Mark Whipple as he was doing the interview in his socks. But I think the thing that's going to be big now going forward that Mark Whipple stressed is we got to bring the turnovers down. They're having a scrimmage Friday, and he just wants guys to take care of the ball. So I don't know. You could maybe read the tea leaves and say maybe that's been happening a little bit too much, or there's been a few turnovers because that kind of was top of his mind. But that's something he wants to really see them work on cracking that case of not giving the ball away.
Since you both were over there, is this the first time either of you have interviewed a college football coach without shoes?
I think so. I had to think about that for a minute.
I know your face. I hope people are watching this.
Yeah,
you were lost in thought there for a second.
Yeah,
you
no,
really
I was
went deep.
You do a lot of barefooted interviews with players after the cold tank in fall camp, but I think that might be the first shoeless coach.
BC, you got anything?
No, I mean Nebraska's probably got to get to a bowl where we get an interview session with one of the coaches on the beach, like sort of there's like a luau type thing going and maybe that sort of deal. But the no shoes thing has worked for Whipple. I think it was it Purdy who was they were recruiting, or he was on his visit and there was a picture of Whipple and he didn't have the shoes on. So that's just his way of comfort, and I completely understand it.
I was just thinking that I remember interviewing Bob Diaco, and he was wearing impeccable shoes. So he's kind of on the other end of the spectrum.
Some alligator skin boots or something. Yeah.
For Mark Whipple, it's no shoes and no problem. So that's where Nebraska football is at. Any closing thoughts for either of you here?
So basically, one more one more practice for Nebraska before they break for spring break at UNL. It's going to be a scrimmage. You don't get many of the tackle to the ground days anymore with the new NCAA rule changes. So they're going to go. They're going to get hot and heavy on Friday and do a little pad popping. And the Scott Frost actually had one interesting comment. He said, there's guys that we don't need to see hit. And then there's guys over here in this column that we need to put them in challenging situations, see how they perform. So it's going to be, I think, really important. And I think they're going to really kind of put the pedal to the floor a little bit, especially knowing that they have a full week afterwards for guys to recover.
All right. Well, for Michael Bruntz and Brian Christopherson, I'm Mike Schaefer. We implore you, check out Husker247, plenty of coverage at the website on these quarterbacks and everything else going on with spring football right now. Of course, recruiting happening as well. Nebraska basketball plays tonight. They try to extend their season conference tournament. They are the first game in the Big Ten tournament. They will take on Northwestern, so we'll have coverage of that as well. And I believe we have another podcast coming this week, so people should be on the lookout for that. So get to Husker247, and we will catch you next time.